Welcome to the Fourth Row Podcast, your exclusive source for 2A basketball. And now, your hosts, coming to you from the Slim 4 studio, Andy and Benny Hill.
Welcome to the Fourth Row Podcast, the only podcast dedicated solely to 2A basketball here in the snowy state of Utah. I'm your host, Andy Hill. I'm here with the coach, Benny Hill, in the Slim 4 studio, sponsored by Security National. We'd like to thank our good friend Chris Jorgensen in the Ephraim office once again for being our title sponsor this year. For any of your mortgage needs, give him a call, 283-3000, as he says, turning houses into homes. We appreciate Chris and everything he does. He probably sponsors a lot of stuff at Manti Head Basketball Coach.
Chris is actually awesome. He does all my youth stuff, takes care of my camp shirts, and he's been, since I've been there day one, I did my mortgage when I moved there. And then since then, we've had a great relationship, and he's really, really made a lot of those decisions that you're trying to do easier. So Chris has been awesome.
He did send me a text during the Manti game to tee me a little bit.
Oh. Yeah. We joke and say Benny.
Chris was a year younger than me in high school, so
very nice.
We got great stories.
Yeah, Chris is awesome.
So we always say Chris is from Manti, and we do hold it against him.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
Especially being from Gunson. But
Yeah.
we appreciate. He has been so good to us.
Good.
A couple announcements about the Fourth Row Podcast. We're still the number one 2A podcast in the state of Utah, 39 weeks running. We say we may be the only one, but we're still the number one.
Absolutely. You got to be number one.
The audio version of the podcast will release each Monday, with the YouTube version releasing later in the week. Make sure you go and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fourth Row Media.
Just for the record, I'm caught up on all my YouTube posts.
So
we've been putting them up on YouTube, and it takes a little bit longer to get those edited with the video.
Sure.
But I'm all caught up now.
Yeah.
I got caught up last night.
So we have a special guest tonight, Benny. Why don't you introduce our guest?
Yeah, so tonight we brought my good friend, Devin Shakespear. In my opinion, he's the best coach in the business around. So I saw him. I ran into him at the game the other night. I just happened to be walking by the bench, and I just talked to him for just about 30 seconds, and I didn't get a chance to catch up with him after the game. And then I just had this thought just a couple of days ago. I'm like, dude, let's just have him down to the house, and we'll visit on the podcast. Absolutely. So we're excited to have him, Coach, have you here to talk a little bit about basketball and the great things you're doing there. After we talk to Coach Shakespeare, we're going to go through our Inside the Numbers segment and then our Power 5.
Yeah, so we're excited.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, thanks for having me.
The other thing, you notice we all have the same colored shirt on tonight.
That was very well done.
I was going to take my sweater off, kind of hot, and then change it up.
We talked about this before when we were just doing the audio and we didn't have the video. You never had to think
You
about
didn't have to-
what you were wearing or if your hair was done
comb
or
your hair,
anything
yeah.
else. And now it's like, you got to pay attention to what you have. So, yeah. Take it away.
Should we roll with it?
Yeah.
All right, let's roll with it. How's your Christmas?
Great. Kids.
You got young kids, so.
We do, yep. 2 to 11. And we had a blast. Kids ate it up, and no sad faces, no disappointment. So you win, right? I mean, kids were, we had a great Sunday.
You guys you stay home, you travel?
We stay home. We travel for a long time. We used to go to Escalante, then we go back to Paiute, back and forth. And about 3 years ago, just finally became a little too much to try to figure that out. So started staying home, and we actually semi-reluctant at first because we loved being in our homes, but it's been way better than anticipated, and man, it's a blast.
So I know you have some little boys. I always see them following you around.
Yeah, you got 2 boys, 2 girls. We went boy, girl.
Nice.
And that's amazing. So weirdly, I grew up with only boys. So there's 4 boys. My wife grew up with only girls, 4 girls.
Wow.
So a very different atmosphere in our homes growing up.
I can imagine.
Yeah, for real. And you don't realize how different until you start talking about things, and she's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "What are you?" And but we got lucky, split them both, and kids are awesome, and we have some dandy children, and we had a great Christmas. It was fun.
Awesome. How's the season going thus far?
Great. Kids are playing hard.
Like I said, the Bulldogs ran into the Templars the other night.
They did,
and it was actually a lot of fun. But anyway, your season, how's it going?
No, it was a fun game with Gunnison. It's a fun game to play. We enjoy playing it, and it was fun to see people out. Cuddison had a good crowd. You guys had a good student section.
It was a nice crowd out.
You did, yeah, and we had a good show up. And over Christmas breaks, it's always like when we go to do concessions, like, I mean, how much stuff do you really order? Because Christmas break games are tough. That was probably one of our biggest Christmas break crowds we've had in a while. And, you know, the fun.
It was a good crowd.
Yeah. So
you kept it entertaining for so we appreciate that.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, what's your just generally what's your thought on Christmas break games?
I prefer one. It surprises me how many people played the tournament games. That's just my own opinion, because I like to be home. And so for us, you know, we try to balance that out and say, all right, well, you got to play. I mean, I can't imagine not playing, because kids, you go 2 weeks off. I think that there's a weird stretch there where they're like, yeah, I mean, we're not preparing for anything, and you kind of have to keep it. So you got to keep that game. So where you have those days leading up to the game were important. They're preparing. But we like the one. We don't like to play multiple games, and then we go morning practices as long as they're good. And that's what I tell them. I said, hey, we'll go 3-4 morning practices. As long as the first one's good, we'll stay morning practice. The first one's not good, we're not practicing in the mornings. So, because morning practice can be tough. Christmas break practices are tough.
Yeah, that's hard.
But no, the boys have been working hard, and seasons, you know, that's what's shown so far. We've guys are playing really well. They're working their tails off, and we're really excited about this year. And really, again, we've had up to this point, had a really good season.
Yeah, I know. I spoke with you over the summertime. You have your games up in the summer that you host, and you talked to me a little bit about some of the new things you're going to do defensively, and I thought your team plays fantastic. I mean, I love what you're doing. What's the record thus far?
10-2.
10-2.
Are we 9-2? We dropped 2. I can remember those a lot easier than I can.
I think it's 9-2.
So we dropped to Desert Hills, and we dropped to Timpview. So 2 games I would play in a heartbeat again, because I'll be honest, I think we could beat either one of them. Right. But Desert Hills was on the 3rd game of a St. George trip at 10:30 in the morning, and you know, for whatever reason, we had a hard time. We shot 3 for 20 from 3.
That'll hurt.
And it's hard to win games that way, and
right.
and especially when you have good shooters. It wasn't. I mean, sometimes you shoot 3 for 20, you're like, oh, but it's like, no, these guys. I mean, we've been shooting, 37+% from 3-point line, and so that one was a struggle. But it was frustrating because I actually feel like, against Cedar, we actually didn't shoot well, but our defense was good enough to win that game. And I think Cedar's going to beat Desert Hills at home, and it's going to be a heck of a game in Desert Hills. So, it was just it was a tough early morning game and a great learning opportunity, because some of those state games are on, 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
it's tough.
Second day. Mm-hmm. So that's why we do it.
One conversation Andy and I have been having this year is when we go through our 2A teams, there's some 2A teams that have scheduled light to average at the first of the season, perhaps to protect the RPI ranking, and also give kids confidence, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then there's others like Millard, who's absolutely loaded up. South Severe's loaded up. Mm-hmm. And I've noted over the years you prefer to somewhat load up with some good teams. Talk a little bit about that.
For us, it's really important. There's been a lot of discussion about that throughout the years, especially early on in my career. Like, what's the best philosophy as far as, and it does differ from team to team for sure.
Yeah.
But we love to go to St. George. We're always the small school there. Play a 3-day tournament. We play 12 games down there. So we play freshman, sophomore, JV, varsity. Play 12 games in 3 days. Our favorite tournament, and our parents love it. It's they can get down out of the winter for a few days and finish up some Christmas shopping. So we haven't had any complaints that way. The only complaint I've ever had down there, we had a good team. We got beat by Snow Canyon, barely down the stretch, and I had 2 boys who got into it a little bit, and it was building up to that point, and it broke, and so we were in the locker room for 3 hours, and had some angry parents after that. But other than that, we haven't had any complaints. Oh. But my philosophy for that is the truth for me is I need to see the adversity now, because it's too late.
Yeah.
And so I need to see how we respond, and I need to see how people are going to beat us. Mm-hmm. I need to know exactly how Desert Hills beat us. I need to know exactly how Timpview beat us, because that's the only way I can address it now.
See, Andy, that's why he's the best in the business.
I don't know.
There's just a question we've had, because we've talked a lot about this. Does the RPI come into any play when you're scheduling games or looking at it anymore? I mean, it's fairly new. So earlier in your coaching career, obviously it's like, hey, I got to get through. I got to win region. That's what I'm worried about, building my team. But now all of a sudden they throw this wrench in with the RPI that throws all kinds of things. Does that play into any kind of scheduling for you?
No, it doesn't. When the RPI came out, we did have the discussion. Do we need to address this? And for me, is no. And in fact, weird conversation about a month ago. We're down at a tournament, and I walked in, and there's a few coaches sitting there talking, and I sit down, and one of them just asked me, he says, we're talking about the RPI, and we keep hearing a couple different things. He says, well, how do you set up those first couple games to make sure? Because he was saying, I don't know what, something about, apparently they've got some of the different first games are different than the other games. Anyways, so he's walking through this, and he looks at me, he's like, how do you do that? I'm like, I don't. I put no thought into it. Now, and it is frustrating. Last year, a couple of our tournament matches up were against some teams with lower win-loss records. Mm-hmm. And so at that point, I think about it and like, hey, can we not have them? Yes. So
gotcha.
So the things that I think about more so is okay. But most of the time, they're already aware of who I want to play when we go to the preview and we go to, we go down to St. George. And so, no, I don't. I think you get lost in that, and I think it's a game. And the truth is does it have advantages? Probably, yeah. Yeah. But it's not my goal, and so it doesn't fit. For us, there's no RPI goal. There's no, none of our objectives, none of our goals are based off of RPI. None of them. No. So makes for sense. Me, why? Totally.
No, it makes complete sense.
Exactly.
It's interesting. It is there. Wins are king, and so the best teams rise to the top anyway. So if you're a good team like Manti and you're playing tough competition and you're winning games, naturally you're going to rise to the top.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do I think there's a way to game the system? Yeah, I guess you kind of.
Some
could.
Absolutely are trying and doing it.
You could load up on the front end, and we've seen teams who, whether they do it on purpose or not, they load up with weaker, quote-unquote, weaker teams on the front end. But ultimately, when it gets into the state tournament, does that really help you? Probably
going
not.
out and no, it doesn't. In fact, it hurts you most of the time more than it helps. And that's why it's like, okay, well, what was the purpose of going and picking up, a couple lightweights in this circumstances or this circumstance? Now, do some teams need some confidence, or do you need to schedule around some of that? Absolutely. Now, that's a great conversation for coaches who are aware of what their team needs, but it shouldn't be RPI based, right? That just shouldn't be it. But some too, and it was weird. Like I said, I sat there for 10 minutes, and I'm just sitting there like, you guys are. You're spending a lot of time on this. And I was just like, there's a lot of other things I got to be working about, and that's just not one of them.
That's true.
Well, let's. What we want to do, Coach, is just go through maybe a little bit of your history, your basketball history, and then we'll build up to a little bit, to current stuff as well. So. Where did you play high school?
Escalante Moki. Years. So.
What years were you down there?
I was there let's see, what it would have been, 99 to 03.
Okay.
So, it was, Escalante was very core family based. My family were my mom's side were the founders from the beginning. So, the Scows who were founded and things like that. So that's been the foundation from the beginning, and a lot of pride there. Small school. These guys always like, oh man, that's such a small school. I'm like, you guys have no idea.
Yeah. Like how many?
Yeah, 18 kids, in my graduating class.
Okay. 18?
18. So,
wow.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, you guys have no clue. Like, it's not a small school. Like, a group of small school. 20 if you count the two that graduated early. So,
wow.
That's a pretty big percentage bump. But yeah, no, Escalante was awesome. Loved everything about it. Loved having a community and a culture. that super supportive.
Basketball was probably the only thing going on, like in the winter times. I mean,
yeah. No, we didn't have. We played a lot of sports, right? But you're really season based, and that was a fun way to do things, right? Is you really go in, give everything you got for your season, and go play baseball because we had fall baseball, and then you go play basketball, and no, I loved it. It was a great opportunity, great school, great community, and super. I still have tons of community members who will text my mom after our random games, and they're like, "Oh, tell Devin it was such a good game."
That's awesome.
It's just a super cool place to be from, and a neat background to myself, and build a lot for me.
What kind of player were you?
Probably an aggressive one.
Imagine that, huh?
Yeah.
Fiery?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
Okay.
quite a bit. I just, God, you had to battle for everything, and we're one of the smallest of the smalls, and so you got to go hard, and it was fun, but yeah, pretty aggressive, pretty fun.
Good shooter? Point guard?
No, had to play. Geez, you got to play them all when you're that size of school. So. A lot of mid-range.
Devin, get in the post.
Yeah, that's a lot of posts, a lot of mid-range stuff. Scored a lot of points, 15 feet, and it's funny as far as the way that we play now and the way that I look, a lot of different things have changed in that, but I scored a lot of points around, that 15-foot range, and a lot in the post, and didn't shoot a lot of threes. We didn't shoot a lot of threes. That wasn't
My kids, they give me a hard time about how they didn't think I could play, So I tell them that none of them have met my highest scoring games yet. They haven't came close to that yet. But I made 1 3 my entire senior season.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It just wasn't a big part at all.
No, not at all. It wasn't a focus. It wasn't a. Yeah, no. We had one kid that shot threes occasionally. I mean, that's because he couldn't do anything else, right? I mean, that's who shot the threes, is the guy who couldn't go in and battle.
It's so weird because it's such a huge thing now, but back then it was there. But it just wasn't.
No, not a focus.
Did you ever
at all.
run a set to shoot threes or anything? It was just so rare.
No.
So rare.
No, and that's, I'm on the tail end of that group. And, because my little brother and that group, I mean, they won state. They were really, really good. They came up, beat a lot of, anyways, that was a fantastic team that came through. And but it was just right after us, though. But it still wasn't, that wasn't our generation. And so those types of, because my brother's 6'4", and I mean, he shot the three and did a lot more inside-out stuff, but in those years, no.
Yeah, it's so fun.
And my coach been coaching for 20-something years, and but no, it wasn't one part of the game. But it was once you're inside of 15 feet, it was on, and a lot of fun, learning.
Did you run the flex offense?
No, we didn't. But similar. I mean,
we were a flex, so it was the junction jumper, man, all day long.
I coached with the flex coach, so I coached with and we'll get to that. But I coached with Steve Hoagland at Paiute, and that's what we were, straight flex when I was with Steve, and it was great. There's a lot of great ways to succeed, and we were the screen down and post to post, screen in for the guards, and then go block to block.
Box to box, man.
Oh yeah.
How were some of those games back in the days going to Panguitch or Paiute?
Oh,
or
Bryce Valley.
Bryce Valley. So my coach and my dad are both from Bryce Valley, and that was nasty. His mom still lived. My both grandmas still lived in Tropic, and they'd stand up, wave to us. We drove by, and once you got to Bryce Valley, it's all my cousins, but it was vicious. And Bryce Valley is our biggest rival, and it was
Game on.
And I ran into one of the Ramseys, his dad coached there, his grandpa coached there for a long time, but one of my friends, I ran into him. His boy's at Juab now, and so we were talking about that. But man, you stepped in the gym with Bryce Valley, and fans are, it is. I mean, grandmas are coming out stands, just in your face yelling, and I mean, it is nuts, and it was a blast.
I'm jealous of that old Region 20.
Oh,
we
so
still do the
fun.
region
The
tournament
region
down there,
tournament.
and that's to me
Loved it.
that is rural basketball.
It is.
The very definition of it, right there.
The region tournament, and because everybody, this talk about going from regions and stuff like that is, to me, it's like, you guys have no idea. I want to go back to region tournaments. I mean, I'd
That
love
would be
to,
glorious.
because it loved it, and that tournament was a reset of everything, gave you a tournament atmosphere, and it was just a straight battle. It was a lot of fun. But and then of course Panguitch you go to Wayne County, and I mean, then you got to go to Milford.
Wow.
Like, you guys don't have a clue unless you're dribbling the ball up and down in front of Milford when you got, they call themselves the dog pound. And I mean, if you understood what those guys were and who they were and what they were doing, we had a couple of them chased us in the locker room after one game. We had a buzz game winner. Mm-hmm. My teammate flipped them off and ran into that. It was nuts.
Yeah. We can appreciate that one. Would have been my junior year. This is going to date me, so it goes back to 1991. 91 was our first year having football again in Gunnison.
Okay.
And we played Milford and the Barnes boys, the Barnes family over
Absolutely.
There. So Chris and Jared Barnes,
Yep.
who were the parents of, I can't think of his name, that's quarterback at the U now.
Bryson.
Mm-hmm. They were absolute.
They put the hammer to us.
Right.
They beat us at least a couple times, 72-0.
Oh, man.
And I remember just thinking, it was just bad. Speaking of Milford, it was bad.
Yeah, right. Milford
bad,
was.
so.
Yeah, we got some
We
good
can
Milford
appreciate
stories.
some of that. Yeah.
No, it was awesome.
How did you get into coaching?
Randomly, honestly. So, I left high school and went on LDS mission. And, on your mission, you think of 100 different occupations.
Where'd you go?
I went to Oklahoma, mostly in Arkansas. So,
Nice.
Yeah, it was awesome. Great place, great area. But, you go through and you think about all the different things you want to do. And coaching wasn't ever one of them. It was just, so, yeah, a lot of things. And I came home and I had a scholarship to SUU, so I went to SUU and just kind of knocking out some generals, doing business management. And then I was actually selling alarms down in Vegas, and I was done. I just didn't go back to school. I was just hanging out with some friends, and we were doing whatever. And my brother calls me and says, "Hey, I got a head coaching job in Valley. I need you to come help me." I was like, all right, I don't do anything else. Seriously, just nothing.
Is that an older brother?
Yeah, oldest brother, Dustin.
Yeah.
Yep. So he's the one in Monroe. And so at that point, like I said, I'm doing business management, taking a few online classes, kind of, and you know how that goes. So I just moved in with him. I just moved over there. I wasn't married and everything, and started coaching. Just got in right with him, and he had been working on it a lot. I don't know, we could get to some mentor stuff, but at that point, he got me going. I got in the gym, and we're at Valley, and again, another one of the rivals, and
The Buffaloes.
Yeah, the old mighty Buffaloes, and you're like, this is kind of weird, but they love basketball, and of course, good people. We got Farrell Heaton there to help us out, and Jim's still there. I student taught under Jim Hoyt, who coached for
Jim. He was there for a long time.
Yeah, long time. Well, still helping Owen, his boy.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's been
Jim's
there
a good guy.
40 plus years. So at that point, it's like, so start doing that. Loved the kids. It's so fun. Just loved it. And I was like, this is easy. So I went back to the counselor and said, all right, I just need to know what's the fastest way out with an education degree. And she said, well, you got tons of business. And so a social science composite was it. And I rolled, 2 years with that and graduated and coached there in Valley the entire time. I lived there the first year. The second year, I'd build my schedule where I could go take classes like a Monday, Wednesday, or a Tuesday, Thursday. And so then I could stay over the night and go coach and drive Cedar Mountain every
That's a glorious drive,
man.
especially
2 or
in the winter
3.
time, man.
Ooh. I had a good truck, and it got the job done. There was multiple times where I had to drive down, go through the park.
Oh, yeah.
Because roads were too bad, and so I'd have to drive down to Zines and drive through Zines to get back home. And got married in that stretch, and but no, that's how I started. I just, like I said, I'm just kind of working through stuff, and Dustin said I need some help, and moved in and started coaching, and haven't looked back since. That was, man, it's been about 14 years.
Where was your first head coach gig?
First head coach job was at Pinnacle Canyon Academy in Price.
I'll be darned. The things you learn.
It's a small. So
The Panthers, correct?
Yeah, the Panthers,
Okay.
absolutely. So I'm, I've been coaching at Valley, and I'm ready to move on. I'm graduating, so I start applying for jobs, and it's funny because a lot of schools are like, "Man, I wish you'd have come here." I'm like, "I applied there." You're like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah,
out.
no." I've had that conversation with multiple people. Like, "Oh, I just wish you were." I'm like, "Yeah, no, I applied there about 10 years ago." They're like, "Are you kidding?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, you sure did." So I started applying for jobs, and the first take was Pinnacle Canyon, and they hadn't played in the UHSA. They'd been playing in this little charter league, and they were just getting ready to go to UHSA, and they're like, well, so we went for it, and man, what an awesome experience. It was an adventure night after night. Kids there. Pinnacle School is
a little rough school, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's kind of a lot of kids who've been kicked out of Carbon, and if you're kicked out of Carbon,
it's pretty bad.
But
Bryce is a rough place.
It was awesome though. I look back at those. There was some of the most fun stories of kids who are no parents, just really living life. And we're third or fourth day of practice, and kids like, yeah, I gotta go. I'm like, we don't do that. Like, he's like, I got my daughter. I'm like, you're a junior in high school, man. And,
wow.
And so just the stuff like that was great though. It gave me a lot of perspective. I actually had a really cool assistant too. That was a super random, but if you educators from other countries can apply, they can come over to the United States, and randomly the principal calls me. She's like, hey, would you be interested in taking on this guy, big basketball guy? I'm like, heck yeah, we need all the help we can get, right? And so Javi, his name was Javi, and so Javi came over from Spain. He'd worked with the Gasols. He was the real deal. Didn't know English great, but he came out of Europe, came out of Spain, had really worked with some really good players. He's played semi-pro ball, and all of a sudden he just lands in my lap. And for me, I'm scared to death. I'm gonna, you're scared you're gonna fail. You're gonna get fired and all this other. It's your first year. You're trying to teach, and he was awesome. Really gave me tried to help me. Before, they play a lot faster. I mean, the shot clock's changed a little bit for some people, not for us, but. He helped me a lot with a lot of not being scared to push youth into like advanced skill stuff. And I mean, he'd take my little 7th and 8th graders, and I just watch him. And I mean, he's the first thing he's doing behind the back, this and that. And I'm just like, what are you doing, Javi? And so we'd talk about it all the time. And anyways, cool experience. I thought I'd be there for a few years. I only ended up there one. The struggle is the retirement, and that's what I kept telling my principal, like, you got to have state retirement, because this isn't a long-term thing, but I am happy to stay for a while. I actually enjoyed the school. Mm-hmm. She was awesome. The principal was awesome. I had some of the really diehards, they came in, they bought into what we were doing, and it was fun. And there's still a couple of guys over there who, I talk to them once a month. They just love. There's one specific guy. He went to UCLA when Wooden was there. Went to Kentucky when Rupp was there.
Wow.
And he just loved basketball. He loved the kids. Sit in the front row by himself. No family. Just pound the floor and go to town.
That's awesome.
So cool experiences. Great first year. A great introduction to being a head coach. A lot of challenges.
At least you didn't have to deal with parent problems.
That's true. Yeah, no, just kid problems. So, no, it's true. It was all us. It really was, and that actually was a benefit.
That'd be kids, cool. Yeah, different experience.
God, we buy them. The school had to buy them most stuff. Most of them didn't have enough, and so I told her, I said, kids need to be wearing shirt and ties, and she's like, these kids don't have shirt and ties. I was like, well, we're buying them then, and so we bought them all shirt and tie. About 85% of them walk in the next morning. A game day, I'm like, you got to wear your shirt and tie. And they walk in. They're like, Coach, I don't have a clue how to tie this thing. So we tied ties for quite a while. And
that's cool.
It was a cool experience, and a fun experience to kind of really put into perspective what I wanted. We had a good year. We went 500. We playing game. We lost by 2. And anyways, it was a fun year, and really neat kids, really fun group of kids that really gave me a lot of perspective to what we were doing, and actually I think helped me buy in more to what I was doing, because those kids were special kids. It was fun.
Can I tell you something? This is why Andy and I wanted to do this as a podcast. Is we never thought in a million years we'd be talking about how awesome it was for you to coach at Pinnacle High School.
It's
the
true.
Things we learn,
yeah,
and the just the journey that coaches go on is. It's special.
Yep.
You're there 1 year at Pinnacle.
Yep.
And then you bounce to
Paiute
Thunderbirds.
Yep. The mighty Thunderbirds.
Back in Region 20.
Back in Region 20. Loved it. like I said, needed state retirement because this is what I was going to do, right? So I talked to them a lot, really good friends with a lot of people. My wife's from there, and so, it was easy transition. We hit in. I went back to be an assistant for a year. Steve Hoagland was coaching there. Steve had been there for a long time, very successful. And Steve, I called Steve, when they offered me the job, because I told him, I said, I'm not interested in being an assistant for a long time, but the truth is your success, I'd be more than happy to, whatever you need. And he said, no, I'm a year. He says, I just need a year to finish up this group, and then it's all yours. And it's great. Steve was great to work with. Steve was very, I'd coached against Steve already for 3 years at Valley. Mm-hmm. I'd played against him for 4 years before, so he knew who I was and what I brought. And very open-minded. Steve was a flex guy, and so he let me. He came in. He's like, "Oh, you guys ought to be on a few entries," and so he let me instill some entries and do a few things. But and then he would turn over a lot of stuff to me, and great guy to work with. And so I spent a year with Steve and had a great year. Man, a tough semifinal game, and was that with Penguins probably, most likely. But great year with Steve, and it was a lot of fun. And then I took over as the head the next year, and then I was there for 2 more years, the head coach at Paiute.
Nice. They play fast. They always play fast at Paiute, or did you bring the fastness there?
Yeah, I brought it. It's straight flex. So
I was going to say, you go from flex to Coach Shakespeare.
It was a little different. And Steve, he was still the AD, but he's just like, I don't know. Like, yeah, it's fine. It's, we had a lot of those conversations when we were coaching with him. Like, yeah, our philosophies are very different, but he's very successful. And I mean, he's, they're in the Final Four and an 18 to 21 season back to back. And so, yeah, moving into that, the kids, it wasn't a hard transition. I coached the JV, coached the freshmen, and moving into that, he had a big group of seniors, and when they left, all the kids were all in, and that was an easy transition. And the kids, we had a lot of fun, and Monticello and us in the semis, man, we had a foul to give, and fun team. We had 2 brothers on that team that were awesome. Had a lot of really good fun things, but we had a foul to give, so we just take a little time, get down near the 3-point line, take your foul, and then we'll reset and change defenses. And so he goes to foul, tackles the kid, literally tackles the kid, and the ref doesn't blow it. So they both fall down, and so we lose a scramble situation. They kick it back to one of the Monticello kids, and the kid who hadn't scored that game hit a 3 and beat us on the last second shot to go to the championship. And then Monticello ended up beating Penguins by 20. We had lost to Penguins in the region championship the night before on a buzzer. Total scramble situation. Kid grabs the ball out of the corner and just chucks it. In fact, it's one of the Christensen kids from North Severe. And they played at Penguins, most of their younger kids.
Okay, yeah.
And I played against, we knew him. His oldest brother played against me in high school. And so, anyways, he beat us a week before. So 2 buzzer beaters that year, but super fun year.
So 2 years at Paiute?
2 years at Paiute.
2 years head coach Paiute. As you're going through your coaching journey, so from Paiute, obviously you're going to make the jump to Manti, which I think is, to me, it's like all the stars aligning, the pace that you like to play at, and then equal that with Manti, who always plays with their hair on fire. It's like this recipe for magic to happen.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite coach that you follow?
So I'm, so I looked at that and I was like, I don't have a favorite. I have favorites, and they're the favorites of what they're doing at the time, right? And how they're playing. And so, of course you can't go wrong with love Coach K and love Roy Williams and love, those old school Bill Self and those guys. But then for me, is a lot of philosophy. So, Bobby Huggins was a lot of clinics. And so I love the way West Virginia plays. And so just
the old Cincinnati Bearcats.
Yeah, the old Cincinnati Bearcats. Kenya Martin and those boys were, just battles. So I look at Bobby Huggins. I met him once down and just randomly at an In-N-Out when I was working in Vegas when he was at Kansas State. And loved that rugged play. So I, love a lot of him. And, recently for me is when we were looking at, Mike Adams at Texas Tech the last couple of years. And So for me, I love the guys who do things that, match my personality with how I'm trying to integrate. And as you mentioned, this summer as we made some changes, that was, I sit there and I can watch every one of Texas Tech's games and it just gets me excited, So it's like, yeah, no, awesome. This is an easy one who you love, So a favorite?
A lot of coaching philosophies that you love. My kids think I'm crazy. I've always been a Bob Huggins fan.
Yeah, how can you not be? The way he plays, man, he's just his guys are warriors, and I mean, and if you've listened to him talk, his stories are unbelievable. The guy just he's
like the Mike Leach of basketball.
Yes, yeah, pretty close. Yeah.
Not quite that bad. But yeah,
well,
Huggins,
if there was
Huggins
enough cameras around him, it'd probably be very similar. But Mike definitely got a little more camera time than Bobby.
Major coaching mentors that you've had.
So I mean, and the truth is, I guess getting to Manti is that's so. Scott Hunt has been primary mentor. So Dustin got with Scott early on, my oldest brother who coached, and so that pulled me in. It was very natural and easy. We'd go to clinics in Vegas and in Denver a couple a year and travel together for years. And just we're driving to Denver every year talking basketball. And it was funny because we were doing that when I was at Paiute. And then I was coaching an all-star game, and Scott was. And Oscar had the 1A team, Scott had the 2A team, and he walks up and says, "Hey, have you applied to Manti?" Like, "No." He says, "Well, probably should." I've been up, I used to come up to Gunnison. I've never, because Central, we're all Southern Utah boys. I used to come up to Gunnison High School. My aunt and uncle moved up here, and then my cousin used to come up. So I used to come up to Gunnison for that, and that's my only Central Utah interaction is coming to Gunnison in high school, and really had a soft spot for Gunnison. Truthfully, my cousin died my senior year, and anyways, we had a lot of things with Gunnison, and so we came up to the drive-in at Manti, right? That's the only time I've been to Manti, and so when he tells me that, he just sat me down and talked to me about a few things, and he battled with Manti every year at South Sevier when he was winning championships, and obviously Manti was competing, and said, "Yeah, you better apply." So I went home and told my wife. I said, "Hey, Coach Hunt says we should apply," and a lot of other things factored into after that, and anyways, so Scott's been amazing. He's in his 38th year up at Roy, and we still talk all the time, and then of course Dustin, my older brother, big mentor coach. He really got me into a lot of the fine detail type of stuff, and really that learning side came from his. I mean, I wouldn't have known. You think back to your coaches and you think back to other things, and you love them and appreciate what they've done, but as far as what we do now is it's a different ball game, and you're doing some stuff. So those two are probably my main mentors.
Like I mentioned before, your style and the way you play, Manti has always had that aggressive mentality, full court, grind things out, just muck things up, and they won a lot. Manti's always been really successful. We've always had a hard time competing with Manti because of the way they play, and then you come here and pour gas on it.
Yeah. Well, that's it worked out, right?
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we may have beat Manti your first year.
Second
year.
You did. Okay.
So,
and I don't know if you want to know the craziest stat of my career from that night. You want to know what it is?
Yeah, what is that? We
had more offensive rebounds than you had shot attempts that night. Think about that. We had more offensive rebounds than you had shot attempts. And they did not go in the hole. And you did. We went to overtime.
Yeah.
We had these three seniors that year, Corbin, Sam, and Mac, and we. Anyways, that was a fun game. You guys battled tough, and yeah, second year, and I've only seen that happen one other time. It was West Virginia in the tournament about 4 years ago. Had more offensive rebounds than and Bobby's on the thing like, "Oh, I've never seen that in my life." I'm like, "Well, I have." But yes, yeah.
So like I said, you've put Manti. You just poured gas on what they do there, and so. What, as a coach, now that you've established yourself, how many years have you been at Manti now?
This is my ninth
year.
Yeah.
So you've established, everything, your program, things are rolling. What are some non-negotiables you have as a coach in your program?
Our non-negotiables start with effort. I mean, that's just straight. I mean, there's just
is that an obvious one?
Yeah, I mean,
for Manti anyway. Goodness gracious.
So we start with effort. The second one, this is on our practice plan every day. I mean, our coaches, we're all very aware, and the boys are very aware of what a negotiable. But effort, and then talking. I think when you have to have a fun environment to be really successful, and if guys aren't talking, they're not having a lot of fun.
I agree. Yeah.
So that's the second one, and then our third one is me, right? Is me decisions, selfishness, and absolutely no room for me decisions in practice, because guess where they come out, right? And they can come out in the game. That selfishness is really important for us, and so those are our three non-negotiables that we really focus on.
Love it.
Interesting. So if you could sum up the basketball culture at Manti in one word, what would you say it would be? I love, that's one thing I've always been fascinated about is the culture. You talk about coaches and mentors, and they have this aura about them, and they say, I don't know that they necessarily have to say anything. You look at Coach K, the way he ran his program, or Huggins or Bill Self or anybody else. They just have this way that they run their programs, and it's that ingrained culture. If you could use one word to describe what the culture is at Manti basketball, what is that?
Expectations, maybe. I think that's
expect to win.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of words that, and I don't know. The word culture itself is almost a word that you could use. But yeah, and of course, going back to our negotiables, effort, unselfish. I love, assists and that unselfish and leading the entire state in assists and some of those things. But yeah, it's hard to pick a word. So and maybe you guys would be the ones, honestly. I mean,
no, it's just interesting from the outside. Growing up here in Gunnison, I didn't play basketball in high school. Ben did, and I had younger brothers that played, and that was always the game, right? It was Manti, and there was always just something about Manti basketball. You knew whether we were playing up there, whether we were playing here, you knew exactly what you were going to get.
Sure.
And it was always this, maybe that's what you put, that expectation was, this is who we are. We're going to come in, we're going to punch you in the mouth, and if you don't punch us back, we're going to run over you.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to do all night long. And I've always loved that about programs who are really, I don't know what the word is. They just don't care. It's like, hey, this is who we are. This is Manti basketball. You can like it and you can try to play with us. If not, we're going to run you into the ground. But that's what we're going to do, and we'll shake your hand and we'll go home. But it's unapologetic, right?
Absolutely.
And I think sometimes that gets taken the wrong way as being arrogant or cocky.
Of course.
But to get to that next level, you have to be like that. I would imagine if you talk to any of those big level coaches who win all the time, they'd be the same way. It's like, well, this is who we are and this is what we're going to do. And if you don't like it, that's fine. But my job is to come in and win.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, it was not only to win, but, and of course, I don't know. And again, there's different perspectives and people have different feelings because, somebody will, and Bennett and I have a great relationship, and most coaches it's easy. But there are some who, they're like, well, you guys treat us like crap. And it's like, no, I mean, our boys, yes, they expect to win, but they better be. And we have the expectation that, hey, I mean, you take care of guys and that you do things the right way. And,
right.
But no, and again, yeah, you'd have to probably be more so of how to describe that as not necessarily me, but because we have our pillars and what we stand for, but yeah.
I would say the Manti culture, from my perspective, is always been is so impressive. And I've bugged you for years, and picked your brain about the things you do offensively, your zone offense, your full court stuff, and you've always been so gracious to sketch things out for me or describe things. That's something that I really love about what you do. Is like I said, you're not scared to share. Yeah. You're like, hey, this is what we do, and we're just going to do it better than everybody else. And I would say, Andy, on your question, what describes Manti culture? May be a word, a winning culture. I mean, I've had my two boys, while being the coach at high school, also being part of the junior high programs, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and it's almost like these cookie cutter teams all the way down to 6th grade. I mean, it's Manti basketball is ingrained all the way down through the junior high levels. And to me, that is so impressive because now as these kids move up, they come into you and, man, you just turn it up even more. And so we're playing, we're doing our best just to survive in junior high. And we know full good and well when he gets into high school, it's game over.
Yeah.
I mean, because that progression and the pace they play out with and the aggression that they play with, even at sixth grade, it just gets ratcheted up higher and higher, and it's played out at the varsity level. So to me, it's a culture that you've successfully built from your varsity team all the way down to the younger levels. So hats off to you. That is absolutely impressive.
Thank you.
Do you plan to coach beyond Manti High School? Because somebody asked me the other night, like, what's because I was singing your praises and I was talking about how great of a coach you are, and the person I was speaking with said, do you think he could coach beyond Manti High School? I said, I don't know. He's got a pretty good gig here. Yeah. I mean, he's got everything. He's winning. He's got programs that are all the way down to the younger levels, competing for state championships. I don't know. So I'll ask him though.
I've had some opportunities. Yes. Not
to put you in a hard spot, man.
No,
I just think it's an interesting question.
It comes fairly frequent. For me, I didn't get into it to get somewhere, right? So, what about college? What about this and this and this? And there's not a big draw there for me because of the family.
True.
We go to, Coach Hunt and I, Dustin, go to colleges. We've been down to New Mexico, all over, and we go there for days and, talk to college coaches and, and then I've had communication with others, and the amount of time they are away from home just turns me off. And it's just, especially when my kids are young right now, it's like, no, if it would have been before or after type of thing. So that there's not a big pull there because being away from home is, as much as I'm away from home is hard, and they're away way more than I am.
Yeah.
And so that right now isn't really, it's opportunity is opportunity, and if you get that feeling that you should do it, you probably will, right? But as far as other, bigger schools, like I said, there's been opportunities. I don't know how. That is one thing that's been consistent. You go listen to other coaches in college and high school and professional coaches, and they just over and over. It's like a broken record. Like, you have to love where you are, and no matter if that is Pinnacle, no matter if that's Paiute, like you just have to. And I didn't know that I completely. They kept saying that, and then. But the longer I got into this is that is so important to just love where you're at, and then you move forward, right? I mean, that's how we live my life, and we're very comfortable. We've loved it. We've loved Manti, and like I said, hadn't been there probably twice in my life until we got the job, and we're driving up and down Main Street, and it's like, all right, let's give it a go, and so no, it's been awesome. And
how was the change from, say, a small Paiute Pinnacle basketball fan base culture to a culture like Manti where they expect to win? Had any challenges with that?
No, I have the same expectations. So, that was one thing that was told to me when I came. Like, there's expectations. Like, well, I don't want to go somewhere where there's not.
Well, that's true. Yeah, kind of a dumb question.
Yeah. Well, no, it's not at all, because I actually think that there's a lot of people who kind of want to go in and I want to do my own thing and I want to do this. I'm like, no, I mean, you're like, well, doesn't that put pressure? Like, no, there's so much pressure I put on myself. Like, if you know how hard it is to lose, like, and that's what people don't understand. It's like, no, you don't get it. Like, it is brutal, but it is also, so fun and the greatest thing.
What's the hardest part about being a high school head coach?
The hardest part, I think your players, if there's ever turmoil or if there's ever that cohesiveness who's being stretched, or the hardest part is going every day and if there's a struggle, right? I mean, that's the hardest part, is this, because then it just doesn't leave your mind. It consumes you. Of how I'm very
struggle. You mean as if with your team chemistry or with players,
chemistry,
or
losing? Losing is if losing
sucks,
might not be the
it's
hardest thing for me. It just consumes me, and I have to figure it out, right? And I have to know. But that also factors into a lot of team chemistry. So for me is that you're there every day, and you want to, man, you gotta love it, and you gotta have that. And when you see guys who are, again, struggling with each other or struggling with their role, guys have to know their role, and they have to be excited for their role. And so for me, the toughest part of coaching is when players are second guessing their roles or their teammates, or their, that's not cohesive, along with losing, because those two often go hand in hand.
Sure, yeah.
And so for me is I struggle so much with the in between with that, and so I really try my best to stay on top of it, and to figure those intricacy out, whether that's in analytics for losing, or whether that's there's so many things you can do to try to improve. But that's probably the hardest thing for me. People always, the common answer, parents and things like that are like, yeah, and then there's challenges there, right? It's those don't consume me like the others. If our boys are, which this boy might be struggling because of parent,
yeah.
But no, those are the things that kind of eat me up, and that really bother me the most is that cohesiveness in day-to-day practice, along with that.
Just a selfish question I want to ask here. I'm assuming you watch a fair amount of game film.
Yeah.
When you watch game film, do you plan specifically for other teams, other players, or do you plan for how you particularly are just going to attack and just do what you do?
We spend most of our time on ourselves, but I do watch a lot of film. So, and then we don't, and then you need to know the individuals. So we watch a lot of film on individuals. We watch a lot of film on the team. So I need to be really comfortable with the action of the other team. I need to be comfortable with the players. I need to be aware of who can do what to take away some things. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, as far as how much we watched a couple of games of each team, and then we watch a lot of my own games. But I spend more time on watching my own games than I do others. But I still spend a lot of time watching theirs. So there's a lot of film there. But the focus is definitely more on the team-oriented, their action, their defense, their offense, their baseline out of bounds, the stuff that I can kind of control. And then you take out, okay, well, here are some players that we need to address. But the truth is if Derek Smith's scoring 40 points on me and we beat him by 15, I'm okay. Yeah. So there's a balance there for me. I some really, really hammer on, we need to take this guy out this way. And we definitely focus more on the team than we do the individual. But meanwhile, we definitely going to focus on their strengths and what mm-hmm. they're doing and how, because you need to be aware of that. But we definitely focus a little more on ours and the team side of takeaway.
I texted you the other day, and I just told you how fun it was to watch your team play. We watched you down play at the SVC, and you absolutely just dismantled Morgan, which was very impressive, by the way.
Thank you.
Very impressive.
That was we had so many people, random people from other schools, come up and thank me after that, and I'm like, what? But football, everybody was so mad after football. They're like, thank you for doing that to them. We're like, well, we were just but anyways.
Your kids were just having an absolute blast, and you guys taking charges left and right, and that's probably a Texas Tech thing, I would imagine.
Big focus this year, and out of that, yes.
Yeah, taking charges. And anyway, I just love how your team was playing, how your team plays, and I text you about you running your hockey subs in, your five subs in, and then bringing your starters back out, and I just look at that, I'm like, that's why you're you win like you win, is because you have the stones to do those kind of things, where it's somewhat unconventional, but it's brilliant at the same time. So and a lot of people, you hear people in the stands like, wow, you're subbing 5 players in and out.
Oh yeah.
Tell us how that came about, because I think it's brilliant.
Awesome. At the end of last season, just sitting down, evaluating personnel and what we've got going, and I needed this group. We needed a big change. Very talented, very skilled, had been playing together for a long time. But we got the semis last year with a lot of underclassmen, and then we got beat, and we were beat soundly. And so it's like, okay, what's the difference?
Sorry, I'm just messing around with my TV here real quick.
Good.
The thing goes for an hour, and then it.
We're taking you're good. So that evaluation period is okay. Well, how the heck are we gonna beat some upper level teams next year with this group? It's the same group coming back, and I've been itching to make some of these changes, and groups are so different, and so it's okay. Well, how are we gonna get this group to their best? And this group, for whatever reason, didn't necessarily full court press as well as some other groups. And so it's like, okay, well, I need a way to ratchet up our defense without doing it in the full court. So again, I've been watching Texas Tech. That's been my favorite team for a couple of years. And I mean, even since Bobby Knight, I followed Bobby a lot. And so I'm always interested in Texas Tech. And then I'm watching them the last couple of years. I'm like, it's just a blast, It's not like they're doing a lot different, but there are some differences. So, it's springtime. We're getting our workouts in, and I'm like, no, let's go for it. And it's a fairly decent change, and then we start working on it, getting it in before summer. And these sophomores are knocking on the door. They're tough. They're playing well, and then I got a lot of guys, and I mean they're doing good things. And so this summer, I talked to my assistant, and I talked to Dustin, and some people I've coached with nonstop about stuff and all the time, and I said, hey, I'm gonna actually sub 5 for 5, and got the usual like, no,
nobody does that.
And that's what I kept. They're like, you can't do that. And I said, well, tell me why not, because I need to know why I can't, right? And so they're like, well, here's the reasons you can't. You have no flow. You have no, like, when your teams are playing well, you got this, and this. And I'm like, okay, all right, I'm gonna do it anyways, just to see what happens. So we go in the summer and we start playing ball, and we play some good teams, and we start doing it. I'm like, no, let's go for it. And then my second group plays a little bit different, so I want them doing different things, and so I have them going to different things, and it's working okay. And we're playing some good teams, and we're playing Cedar, and Cedar jumps on us. Physical group, strong. They jump on. They're up 10 or 12. They're up 7, so we're battling back and forth. And I do my 5 change, and we struggled the first set, and they jumped right. I mean, they were up 12-14, and I'm like, So then we go back and we kind of battle it down. It's a 7-point game and a half. Second half, we start first 5. It's still 7, 8, 9. Second group comes in and just hammers them for whatever reason. We're up 6 or 8. Next group goes in. We're up by 20 by the end of the third quarter. Beat them by 35 by the end of the game, and they're just livid on the other side. And so I'm like, oh man, there's something potentially there that I need to play out and see if it's realistic. And then I told you, Ben, I really need this whole group to stay fully engaged. I can't afford to be playing 6, 7, 8 and then expect my 9 and 10 or 11 when I need them. And that was actually a big philosophy change about 5 years ago. And it was a tough change. And I think we talked about this quite a bit, 4, 5, 6 years ago, as I started playing 8, 9, 10 guys. And you used to ask me about that. And it was really hard because everybody plays 8, right? It's easy to play 8 and you're comfortable. And I started playing that 9, 10, 11. It's been about 6 years ago. We had solid depth. They weren't better, but it was like, well, let's really pursue this, and especially where we're pressing a lot. So then we started pressing more and play more guys, and we started doing more aggressive. And it's like, let's push in, and then all of a sudden, I think it won us some big time games. And then all of a sudden it became our culture of what we're doing, and it became more and more and more. And so, we came comfortable playing 8, 9, 10 guys.
Yeah.
And it was very uncomfortable for about half the season. It was brutal. I hated it because it's, you know what that feels like. You're subbing that guy and not knowing what's going to happen. But then all of a sudden he learns and he can do it. And it's like, wow, this is working. And by the end of the season, we win the whole thing. And with those 2-3 kids are on the floor, that kid's a sophomore, and I'd have never given that kid a chance if I wouldn't have in the first half of the season, right? And so, anyway, so that kind of led into it. And then this year, the 5-for-5 thing was just, I just saw it, and I'm like, I've got to try it. I can't. This group needs some pushes. They need some defensive pushes. They need to know that guy behind them is going to take their spot too, because this group's been pretty confident they've been good. But I also needed them to know, like, hey, I mean, that guy's playing the same spot.
I think that's one thing that you told me probably 5-6 years ago or so, and that is, because I said, how do you get these guys in? And you said, well, I tell them, if I remember correctly, you said they know they have 2 to 3 minutes. And if they don't play their tails off in that 2 to 3 minutes, they're not going to go back in for another 2 to 3 minutes. So I've got this carrot that I can put out there to them to get them to just go and lay it all out while they're there. And that's kind of a struggle that at schools smaller than Manti, for instance, at Gunnison, is when you don't have that next level of people to push the top level of people, then you get complacency and you get some stagnation. But I think when you roll these other 5 guys out there, you're able to completely control the game in a different way, but you get to control how you want to play the game.
Yeah. So it's working. Playing 5-to-5, and we're going. And it was 3 minutes. That's when I told you that and then I can't remember who said it, but he said, players can't play more than 3 minutes at my hard. He said, not their hard. Because they're the difference. And he was talking about himself, and I can't remember which coach it was. It was one of those guys, and probably it might have been Shaka Smart. I mean, those VCU runs, and so actually I think it was he was one I didn't mention, but and so I started looking at that, and it's like, yeah, no, you're right. You can't go as hard as you can when you have to play 7 or 8 minutes or 6.
Yeah.
It's impossible, and we start subbing that is at that 3 to 4 minute mark consistently 5-6 years ago, and it's really made a big difference. Fourth quarters, we really pride ourselves. It's a huge aspect of our program is what we do in the fourth quarter, and to have your legs in the fourth quarter and have that drive just to get after it is really important. And so, yeah, no, it's. I keep, again, we have lots of naysayers, but it's about what we're doing with the 5-5, and it's working. And it's now, are we going to have some things with foul trouble and things like that where, yeah, no, absolutely. We've had 3 or 4 of our games where I couldn't go 5-for-5, but I can go, those 2 subs are in, and I can go the other 3 in, and then I can work them back through. So we're playing 10 to 12 every night, and it's not like it's garbage minutes. I mean, we're playing 10 to 12 with guys who are getting actual reps. And again, it's kind of a crazy idea that last spring, and let's give this a shot. And
I love it.
It's fun. It's a fun way to, and it's gallows. Like I said, now everybody knows. Like, I'm gonna get my chance, right? And so in practice, it's nasty and it's fun.
Practice is pretty wild.
Yeah. No, you got 2 legit. I mean, nobody likes to lose, so your breakdown stuff. You don't want to be dropping those games to those other guys, but that's a good group behind them that are challenging them every night.
That's awesome. It's just fun to see because you say traditionally in basketball, whatever level it is, you don't see the hockey line change, right?
No,
because it's always been maybe in junior jazz, you just can't do that. And I love listening to you tonight. And the one thing I'm taking away is you're okay with just not pushing the limits, but just saying, hey, I'm going to try something. Why not? Why can't it work? Because if it's working for you, then what does it matter if anybody else says, oh, that can't work? Well, for Manti basketball, it does work.
Yep.
So if you're number 1 in the RPI and you're winning games, hey, it is what it is, right?
And if guys they're bought in, right? I mean, for a program to be successful, guys have to buy in. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have to have full buy-in. And I started doing this. It took a minute because I'd actually midsummer, our second group had gone in and outplayed our first group and just had done some work. And after the game, they were talking trash, and I bid it there because you got to decide when to let guys get at. Mm-hmm. There's the second group. He's like, hey, we saved your butt, and it got the other guy fired up, and it's great, man. It's like, no, there is there's something there. And again, it's not something you can do every year. It's not something you can do consistently. But no, it's really working for us, and it's really fun. Kids are, and my varsity guys, I mean, every one of them get legit minutes. They get breaks, and and then the cohesiveness between your group of playing together becomes easier. And anyways, it's been fun.
That's awesome. It's a lot of fun.
We could talk basketball all night long, I believe.
I love this. I've never coached basketball. I played my freshman year in high school, but that was it. But I love to hear the behind the scenes of what goes on in the mind, because I think sometimes people show up, you just roll the ball out. You got good kids, and that's how it is. And you try to tell them it doesn't work like that.
Not at all.
And what coaches do and what goes on behind the scenes and what goes on in the spring and then the summer and everything else. They want to know, why is Manti so good? Well, go talk to Coach Shakespeare, and he'll tell you it's not always about rolling the ball out come the 1st of November. It's what happens all those 6 months prior to that, and they're game planning, and they're looking at coaches, and they're going to clinics, and they're talking philosophy, and they're talking strategy. That's why they're good.
What is your 2 other questions I want to ask you, and we'll let you get home. But we got to go through our Power 5, though.
I'm good all night.
Okay, all right. We didn't want to keep you.
Don't worry about me. I'm fine.
So give us your 365 basketball cycle. So you're in season now. Once season ends, you probably take some time off in the spring, and then you pick it back up in the summer. What's your yearly?
Yeah. So, and that's
cycle?
actually one interesting thing about just coaching and sports. The year-round thing I disagree with wholeheartedly for kids. I don't think, I think that they need to be doing things. It doesn't matter what they're doing, but they need to be doing something, right? And so season starts November, season ends March. So we completely
Oh, no Wi-Fi? Oh, technical difficulties on our.
All right.
Carry on.
You're still good? All right.
Yeah, we're good.
So we just, we do our extra interviews and break, get the guys out, let them go do their own thing, and invite them out, go whatever you want to do, track, baseball, whatever it is, go play. And then we typically wait until April, and about mid-April we'll see who's not playing other sports. And we leave the other sports guys alone, and then we start early mornings, and that's when we start integrating some stuff. And depending on how many guys, some years, and it differs from year to year depending on how many guys are playing other sports and not. And so April we'll go twice a week, early mornings, and 2 to 3 times a week depending on the situation. And we do Vertimax workouts and just good exercise workouts.
I notice you guys have some players that are absolutely jumping out of the gym.
This is our 4th year on our Vertimax workouts.
Yes.
And we do a session fall and spring, and it's coming. It's actually pretty cool. I actually think it's made a huge difference. I know it has. I mean, the Rasmussen kid he still couldn't dunk this fall, and he now, windmill, and it's anyway. So we do, and I do think it helps doing something besides. It's not just basketball. So we get them in. It's athleticism, and it's workouts, and it's camaraderie. So we're getting in. We do Vertimax. We do a bunch of workouts there, and then I do drills on the side. So we're integrating both. So we'll go that throughout the spring. And then, everybody plays right now. Geez, everybody up north's playing in the spring, and we don't play in the spring. We get invited to a million tournaments. And we still want our kids playing. So it's like, no, we're like, you could get your kids. I'm like, yeah, I could. You're right. But that's not the point. And so I don't want my kid, and I need them to feel like they can do other things. Now, if there's a basketball kid, of course he's there every day and he loves it, right? So that's not a problem either. Then you can mix it up, and you can keep the kids who want to focus, and you can allow the other kids to develop. And so then usually as soon as baseball's over, we'll kick off and start playing, and we play about 30 games end of May to the end of June, and that's when we try to any defensive and offensive tweaks, we'll try to get those in. And the participation's great. The guys are there. They also come not to dink around, and I mean not to be messing around, and not to come flash. They come in knowing that, hey, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, and here's the expectations. And we break at the end of June, and I think guys should be with their families. So it's like, yeah, no, I should be too. So we take July off, and in fact we take August off too, because we want football and we want we want those sports in the spring or in the fall to feel like that. We fully support every program.
Now, Kaysen was the quarterback, correct?
Yep. Oh, 4 of my 5 starters played football this year. And that's not every year. But, Lars and Kaysen contributed well, and Reggie, those 3 starters were probably 90% of our yards, right? I mean, so, and so we get back together usually in September, but not the football kids don't come. We just get the kids who aren't playing other sports and get them in, and same thing, do early morning workouts. And I do still, when people don't perceive that, but I still want kids to be committed, but in a way that they can still be committed to other things. And their family's got to be one of them, and that they know that for me is okay, this is that time. And so then we get ready for the season and get started. So nothing super special. We get good games in. I do think that we have a really productive summer. I think it helps be ready for the summer, because that's I don't want us to show up and play. That's not the goal. And
that would probably, you nailed it. That was kind of the difference that I see watching Manti. Manti's playing in the summer with an absolute purpose. Other schools are just trying to get 8 kids to show up, but you guys are playing with an absolute purpose that you've already pre-planned. Yeah. You know what your focus is, and that's what's impressive about what you're doing. That I see in the summertime, because you just flat steamroll people in the summertime.
Well, that's everybody. I was just the summer. I'm like, no, it's not. Don't tell me that, because we are here for purpose. I don't know. You can't waste it. And a lot of guys do. But
one other question I wanted to ask you, and I don't know how to frame this. Let me see if I can describe this properly. In the world of basketball, you have great players, and every parent thinks their kid's great, right?
Of course.
Everybody thinks they're wonderful.
And they are in their own way.
Yes. How do you determine who is playing on the court, chemistry-wise? Because it's hard to explain to somebody what team chemistry is.
Sure.
Because someone would say, well, this kid is an amazing shooter, and this kid's an amazing shooter. How come coach isn't doing this with these players?
Of course.
But you can look at it and say, we play much better with these 5 guys who may not be the best, but we play as a team better.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's even a conversation.
No,
how you describe that, because it's definitely a true thing.
Oh, there's no question. I think that where a lot of people miss out in understanding that aspect thing is watching how they defend and rebound, and then, like you said, the cohesiveness on offense. So you look at that. If a guy can't rebound for me and I need rebounding, he can't play. It doesn't matter. So then you figure out, okay, well, where do I plug a rebounder in? Okay, well, if a guy can't, depending on their skill sets, and then offensively, you can put a guy in, and right now I've got one guy. So so it's figuring out the foul trouble is, okay, well, if I'm not subbing these guys, I send this guy in, this guy, and I'm watching him play with me in practice, and I'm like, why the heck are we not scoring? So I'll go watch some practice film, and I'm just watching. What's the difference between him and this other guy who's in foul trouble? And I'm like, oh, well, here it is. In transition, look where he goes, and look where he goes. Just straight. So then I'll try to teach this kid, but it's not part of the group, because he's never had to feel that spot, because he's never played with those guys. So that cohesiveness is not there. It's like, well, okay, we've got to try somebody else, because even though, yeah, you're right, he's probably the best shooter in
individual talent or whatever,
right, to plug, but he's not, because he doesn't make our team better. And so, defense and rebounding for me is the easy first one. If he's not going to defend and rebounding, we're going to move on, right? Mm-hmm. It's just, you have to. And then after that is, okay, how in the heck, because we focus, transition offense is a lot for what we do. And so the plug and play, a lot of times that first 7 seconds is, okay, what is he doing in 7 seconds? Why are we, like, we're scoring automatically now, and then I put this guy in, and they're like, oh, there he is. So yeah, it's quite a deal, the way that kids, some groups, I've replaced, I think, 3 senior starters over my 9 years, and those are the hardest days of the year. And God, I've talked to every one of their moms after, and I've had crying moms, I've had angry moms, and I just tell them, like, hey, I love your boy, and I'm really sorry, and I don't think you understand how hard this is for me, but I'm sorry. And so, yeah, three senior starters that I think I've replaced and I actually went to dinner with one 2 weeks ago down in St. George, and he's been off about 4 years, and so I asked him some of those things. How hard is that when you but man, if you can keep those relationships and those roles, we had a great dinner. I mean, he invited me out. In fact, he paid for it. I'm like, hey, this is
bonus.
A pretty good gig. This is the first time I've had a player take me out to dinner. Anyways, it's cool, but fun experience. And it was a kid who I replaced midway through the season as a senior, and he didn't start the rest of the year. And I hopefully can have that relationship where I can go sit down with her mom, and so far we have, and one mom still, she still questions it, but the rest of them are. But those boys don't usually. They usually understand. And
because when you have that's a problem that you would face, other than for a team that has limited talent. I mean, you trying to find 8 guys that can go compete.
Sure.
But if you have 10 plus guys, there has to be some way that you can evaluate it and decide who plays. You can't just play your buddy's kid or the kid in the ward or whoever.
No, you can't.
It's got to come down to analytics.
Yeah, and I'm a big
chemistry,
analytic
and
guy.
those kind of things.
I mean, we haven't. I do spend a lot of time in analytics. I do spend a lot of time into that, and I do love that aspect of the game. I think it helps us be successful. I think your boys have to understand why they lose. They have to understand how they win. So we do spend a lot of time on that, and the boys do. I mean, we require a fair amount of them, doing some of their own film and some of those things that I feel like give us a big advantage because I think players understand their shortcomings. They understand their percentages. They understand where they're not being successful. And if they understand that, a lot more is going away from the gym outside of the home. But for us, is the boy, he's understanding. And geez, getting switched over to 6-man isn't the end of the world, especially when you're on a dang good team. It's like, that's okay. But the world doesn't always see it that way. But
it's true.
It's but yeah, analytics are a big part, and you do have to. There's a weird balance there. You can't go straight by the numbers because you won't get it because you'll miss, and there's some flow there that you have to have. But you mix the two, and if you're fortunate enough to get those players to have that feel for that role, then I think you can usually succeed with it.
Love it. Absolutely. Because I've always I try to talk to my kids about, in basketball, scoring is it's a cool thing. Everyone loves to score and get their points, but it's making winning plays.
Yeah. And
a lot of times people that are watching the game just from the stands don't appreciate winning plays, getting 50-50 balls, saving a ball out of bounds to give you an extra possession, offensive rebounds, the non-sexy things. Those are winning plays.
Yeah.
And that's what, anyway, I'm just geeking out as a coach here, former coach, because I see all those things with your team. I just see all those, they just make winning plays. And it's very, very impressive. What else you got, Andy? Because I'll keep rolling here if you want me to.
Well, let's move on to our segment called Inside the Numbers. We still got some other things for Coach Shakespeare to talk about. So this segment we have, usually if we have a guest or we're talking about somebody else, we'll roll out some random numbers of things that are going on in high school basketball. But tonight we want to talk a little bit about your numbers, the Inside the Numbers segment sponsored by Kimball and Roberts Accounting in Richfield, supporting their South Sphere Rams. So we appreciate them supporting us in this segment. Just looking back at some of your numbers, in your 9th year, you've won 3 state championships, correct?
Yep.
2015, 2019, and 2020. At least according to the Des News, overall record 146 and 68. That's a lot of games.
Yeah.
Currently ranked number 1 in the RPI this year in 3A, 9-2 record. So my question I have for you in regards to these games, you've coached a lot of games. What was your favorite victory, and what was your worst loss?
For whatever reason, I'm not a favorite, like, because, I stand up and introduce myself with class at school, and they're like, what's your favorite this and this? I'm like, I don't know. State championship victories, obviously, how are those not your favorites, right?
Absolutely.
Our semifinal game was against Judge in 2020, and we were told that year, all year, that we wouldn't beat Judge. And so for whatever reason, we were ranked number 1, but nobody put us as number 1 because Judge had played a tough schedule and did drop some games. And there was a lot in that game. There was a lot of words coming from people's mouths, and there was a lot of so they at a Slick, they funnel you out the same door at halftime, and we were down 7 at half, and Judge's locker room was right out the door, and then we had to walk right through the same door together. So I held my kids back, let Judge get out, and they're standing in the hall waiting for us.
You're saying there was some player chatter during
the
game?
Yes. Okay. Lots of that. So we get out the door, and they just went off. I mean, they said some extremely inappropriate things to our boys as we're walking by, and just mocking us, and but how are you guys, you're not number 1, and just we're the, and that's what we'd been told by a lot of people. And that team, we didn't lose a fourth quarter that season. There wasn't one. And we come out third quarter and battle back, and then in the fourth quarter we just worked them over and had a what a fun game. Similar, Richfield's up on us at 6 the next night, and come back, and those are some, for sure, some highlight wins. The game over South Sevier in 2018 was, South Sevier was picked to win it from way before the season started, and they had beat us twice in region. The second game, we're up at half, and they come charging back and put it to us the second half, and that game was for sure a highlight game. The feelings in that game were very intense, and of course they were intense in every game. But again, not picked. We were not ranked that year going into the state tournament. We went as an 8. We played in the 8-9 game. We beat Morgan. And Morgan was actually the number 1 in them in South Sevier, and so we played Morgan, which was a huge win in the quarters. And anyways, that the win against South Sevier, and same thing goes. You go back to Emory. So we're sitting in before state championship. You go in and you meet with the UHSA and the coaches, and everybody's in there for a big meeting. And we're sitting in there, the cheer and the drill. Everybody's in there, and not the players. We were allowed to bring a couple of captains, but we're sitting in there, and Emory had. They were 1, and they had won, most of the games. That was a dang good team. So we're sitting in there, and they give us this big sportsmanship pep talk. Like, oh, we got to have, all this sportsmanship. And right after the sportsmanship talk, the UHSA, the guy, he says, well, he just made the comment, let the best man win. And the cheer coach from Emory, she looks over and says, oh, don't worry, we will. I'm not kidding. For the whole room. Loud. I mean, she said it for the whole room. And I'm sitting there, and I look at her. It's like, huh. So, of course, I mentioned that to our boys before the game started. Oh, the cheer coach is, reaffirming. Then after the game, I want to send her a thank you card for getting us. But no, so that game, I mean, that was intense. Golly tried to stall it out with us with 4 minutes to go. They were up. We were down in that game. We were down 9 with 2 minutes to go in that game, and went on an 18-22 run to wrap up that one. And that was, I mean, you probably can't beat that one. It's your first championship. It's on a dramatic. Like I said, we're literally down 9 points with 2 minutes to go. The kid who won the MVP struggled that game, and he struggled. And so I had his sub for him at the 2-minute mark going in, and he couldn't hit the ball outside the bar. And his defense, he was just struggling. And so I had this sub coming in, and then he finally breaks loose, gets a nice steal, nice bucket. And so I pull his sub back, and we go on and make a run right there. But and then you go back to a lot of wins though. The championship wins are special, and of course those are the highlights. Mm-hmm. But we've had a lot of fun games, a lot of fun wins against a lot of good teams where your guys are giving everything they've got, just going down the wire. And, you actually finally make a good decision, right? Make a lot of bad ones. So, but no, I think those for sure are highlight games and highlight wins. And, hostile environment wins are fun. Mm-hmm. Going up and, going down to Richfield or going down where, there's big crowds. And those are a lot of fun. So sorry, I don't have any direct favorites. There's just a lot of fun games, and even this season, our win against Cedar, we couldn't hit anything, and our defense won the game, and that was a very satisfying win because we didn't shoot. I mean, we shot again 18% from 3 and like 34% from 2, but our defense really had us in there, and that's those are intense when the boys are up and you're fired up and games are fun. Worst losses, there's certain teams that are harder to lose against than others. North St. Pete's beat me twice, and both of those hurt.
That will sting, yeah.
Yeah, and then anytime I was gonna say I haven't lost to Southsphere for a while, but the year we won it, they'd beat us at home. We have a lot of pride with our home. We haven't lost many games at home. It's been fortunate. Mm-hmm. But those home wins against those home losses against rivalry teams are the ones that really hurt. They just kind of irk you.
You have a great home environment there. Your student section is fantastic.
Unbelievable.
It's fun.
Unbelievable.
It's fun. It's been so fun. Great environment, great support, and our home record is phenomenal, and a lot of that goes to, we have I've got a chance to coach in a few All-Star games, and the boys, it's always fun I've watched them on film, and that's why I tell them I know you guys impressively well. You'd be surprised, and I'm just I always want to thank them because the fact that they're there, and I get to invite them when we go down to the All-Star game, and that's why I a lot tell them. But a lot of the boys be like, man, I was just jealous, I loved coming. We hate that's the worst to come there and play, but leaving there, it's like, man, that was. I wish. And it's like, yeah, we've had some fun years with keeping our student body involved, and
over the years we haven't, we fluctuate at Gunnison. Sometimes we're really competitive, and sometimes we're not. But I'm telling you, a few years ago, it was during COVID. And this speaks to why I love to play Manti and I love to go to your gym. Is you texted me on a Tuesday morning and said, "Hey, we had a game canceled. Can you guys come up and play tonight?" Do you remember this?
I do. Yes, I'd forgotten, but yes, I do.
And I said, I text the guys, and they're all just like, "Dude, let's go." Yeah. And we had a competitive team that year, so
absolutely.
it was an easy decision to go. But that environment to go to play in Manti with your team, I absolutely love it. There's nothing like, at least for us in Gunnison, to competitively go play in Manti against your team. That was my last year I coached that year. That was probably one of the funnest games I played in.
That was a great game. Oh, I remember that for sure. And you guys, it was, like I said, it's fun when you guys come and
make it competitive.
Oh yeah, no,
it was a fun game.
It was a fun game. Yeah. Well, and a lot of respect to obviously you guys and what you're doing and you and but no, those are the fun. Those don't have the as much of that. There's those teams that you can't lose to, right? Those games, there's a weird pressure there.
Yeah.
Where I had a grandma come my first year Manti. She lived down the street from me, and obviously I knew. And she comes up, she says, "My grandson plays for North St. Pete." She says, if you lose to them, I will. I'm like, excuse me. But no, but yeah, no, it's been fun.
And we chuckle because, like I said, we fluctuate with talent. But one of our big rally cries in the locker room before we go play Manti up in Manti every year is we want to make a player from Manti cry.
Yeah,
if we can beat him.
Yeah, that's right.
And we can usually do it. It doesn't happen very often,
right.
But the years we could do it, we'd make note of it. So next year's like we got to make somebody from Manti cry.
That's good. You got to have what you got to have.
When you have the winning culture there and you expect it, and you can actually go up there and knock them off. For us, it's big time.
Oh.
But anyway, back to your environment. Your environment there is absolutely awesome.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, it's definitely
you win a lot of games and you have a
fun place to go.
All the things are moving together. You got the student body, you got your crowds, you got your fan base, and anyway, very impressive.
Well, and I'll be honest, like this year, some of the most fun years are my crowds who are led by some of my former players.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
And it is the truth. Some of those really, really great crowds, like this year, those kids sitting in the front, 4 of those boys played for me, and they don't anymore. And, it's so fun to see those guys, whether they were cut or whether they, chose not to play anymore, to watch them stay with their friends, stay connected, come in, sit on the front row, and just love it. Because there's still a lot of fun things to do there. There's a lot of fun things to do to be a part of it, and so it's always fun to have those crowds there who are led by kids who, may have either been cut or stuff like that, and that's always a cool thing for me to sit over, look at those boys and know that there's still that level of appreciation, respect, even though it might have took a year or two, which is understandable, but. With this year, we do have a fun group of boys who've all played for me, and they're on the front row, and it's a cool thing.
That's great.
That's awesome. Well, this has been an amazing visit. So, we still got some stuff to talk about tonight, but thank you for sharing your insights and your passion. And It's been fun for me to get to know you. I know you and Benny coached against each other, and I just always see I'm at the scorer's table when we did play you, and I could hear you down there. And my son played against you for a couple years before he was done, and so.
His son, right, Harley?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, like Harley.
Yeah, he's a good kid. So he's just hit his 18th month mark.
Oh, cool.
So
good for him. Where's he at?
He's in England.
Wow. Which part?
He's in Bristol, which is the south. He's actually out in Wales right now.
Oh, nice. Wales is where my Shakespeare group comes from.
Really?
Yeah.
He's loved it. Good. English folks are really tough, but he's absolutely loved Wales. They're just very different.
That's where
folks.
my dad served over there. But my family comes directly from Wales.
Nice. So he's he loved it, and he loved playing, and he still talks about some of those games playing. He played in that game, and
that's the one.
Yeah, I think Harley hit a bunch of threes.
He
that
did.
game.
He was going against Thompson, and he was game.
Yeah, he played a great game. Yeah, no, Harley was a battler.
It was a lot of fun. So we appreciate that. So we're gonna move into our segment, which we call the Power 5. Actually, we're going to talk about what we say really matters, and that's the Power 5.
Bingo.
The Power 5 this year is sponsored by our good friends at Barney Trucking. If you want to drive one of the big, beautiful blue or white trucks up and down the road, keeping the lights on here in central Utah, reach out to them at barneyjobs.com. Coach, just for you, our